track in order to put this terminology into the topic. Just you know, some thoughts, because in many cases students are not understanding, and we are incorporating the words of the week, but only a small percentage of them are taking advantage of it because they're fearing how they're going to be viewed by their peers.
Can I back you up on that? In my public speaking classes, one of the major struggles that we go through, students want to be their own source material. Oh, I work at Alamo Car Rental, I know everything there is to know, and what I have to communicate to them is, I don't know you, so I can't inherently trust you, right? So you know, it is getting in that practice. You have to show me that you've read and you've learned and you've read more than you need to cite. And so yeah, that's a really interesting point. Thank you.
And I just wanted to piggyback on what Mr. Briggs,
Oh,
what
Briggs.
Mr. Bocage said, because one of my teachers, and it is Dr. Briggs, he supplies a reading list to go along with his course. Now, the reading list, you have to do a summarization of what he provides, and it serves as extra points. But in that, the reading list provides more background to what he's actually teaching in class. And what I've noticed is that the students don't read the reading list and they don't do the summarization because they said that they don't understand how it applies to school and to outside life. And I tell them all the time that you can't understand the book unless you have something to put with it. And the articles are based on, some of them are, I can't think of what it's called right now. But they are,
Journals.
Yeah, they're all journals, but they're based on,
Case studies.
yeah, thank you, case stories and,
Case
Case study.
yeah, thank you, for people who did PhDs and they did read this research on these items, which inside those articles, they have other articles that you can read in order to understand. And for those who do read the articles and talk about the articles in class or reference the articles, then that person is a snob or brown-nosing because they're doing extra work in order to get extra credit. But just speaking for myself, I need all the credit I can get without the grades. So I am more than happy to read anything that he tells me to read.
Yeah.
So
But it also helps you.
Understand what is going
And
on.
also helps you with your vocabulary to become more fluent and more expressive. That's the key, that's the connection with literacy.
For the purpose of this meeting, I just want to connect that, so it's a focus on not just presentation, right? Not just the performance, but the content. You can have really good presentation qualities, but if you don't have good content,
Yes.
it's
I'm
it's
agreeing.
worthless,
And
right?
some of those things I have to actually open up a dictionary to figure out what I'm reading.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've always learned something from it. So when he's talking, I'm like, oh, so when you're talking about vertical and horizontal outsourcing in relation to this, and he's like, yes.
There you
And
go.
everybody's looking around like, where'd she get that from? It was in the article.
So I took a couple notes, and so kind of to piggyback off of what Keisha said, in public administration, at least with Dr. Alamayu and Dr. Robinson, in their classes, from time to time, they will give a project, or not necessarily a project, but you'll present a chapter. And I think that being able to read the course material and be able to speak to it to your classmates in maybe a less formal, like a presentation, helps with something like Dr. Uday said about being able to use that in day-to-day language in your interview skills. So I think that I find that to be something, at least in the public administration department, that I think may be useful in getting some of those technical terms to be a part of your everyday language, because once you're in that field, you need to speak to that. But I think one of the things that we maybe don't utilize enough is how do we incorporate some of the student organizations in helping with those interpersonal conversations. So could the student organizations lead a Toastmasters, right? And maybe just have a couple professors sit in and, hey, this is, we're public administration, we need to be able to speak to it. once a month or once every couple months, we'll do a Toastmasters type thing and open it up to the department. So I think at least, cause I work with the, public administration, student organization, so I know that we would be willing to do it. It's just something that maybe never was on our radar, but we try to do something every month. So, maybe reaching out to those organizations. Another thing, I guess, and this was kind of just like a brainstorming thing, Mr. Bokai talked about the literacy. One of the things that I see for interpersonal, a lack of interpersonal conversation with the younger students is that their everyday life is in their phone and in their technology, and so they don't have great conversation skills with their peers. So it's also not going to happen working its way up or down the ladder. So how do we continue to encourage technology but kind of force a way into, y'all have to learn, like you'll sit next to each other and text each other or things like that, and so it's causing them not, you'll sit at the dinner table and be on your phone, so there's a lack of just conversation skills across the board. And so how do we encourage that when, as a school, when you technically don't have the student that long? I mean, it goes far beyond just, I guess, reaching within the confines of SUNO.
Dr. Marshall, Dr. Wilson has to leave, so if we can get her comment in.
Yes.
I want to piggyback off what she said about everyday conversations. As faculty and staff, I am guilty of this. In oral conversations, we do not correct our students. We can hear them saying bye and you dig and whatever other slang they're using, and we will sit there and nod and affirm our understanding, and not once will we say, wait a minute, you're in college.
I don't agree.
I don't think we do it enough collectively to say you're in college. Let's go back. I want to hear what you're saying, but let's use the King's English. I think we need to start taking responsibility for what we do model, and you made a good point when you said that, because we support the Mr. Bolage, I guess, literacy. We support those things in formal ways, but in consistent ways. When we allow we engage in these conversations as faculty and staff, and we do not correct the student to make them aware of time, place, and audience. So I think, as we all go forward, that'll be something that we all need to think about. We need to be better models of what we want our students to demonstrate to us. See.
Thank you.
Us.
Thank you.
You taught my son, you know that?
All right. You came in and watched the speech one day, right?
I did.
And you got real mad at me. Sorry, this is side.
Don't reveal.
I will not reveal.
Yes. So.
It was a memorable moment.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I mean, not to get off topic, I'm kind of like going into the plan portion, and I think we probably have to get that one passed. But I do want to mention that with our program, we do a discussion panel. And we usually have, because again, we're evidence-based research that we do all everything we do, and it shows that we have a discussion panel with individuals that may have similar backgrounds, and those who do not have similar backgrounds to your students. They talk about their college experiences, good and bad, and relay that message to our students, and then they will pick up on that. So if someone says, oh, I was pregnant when I was in college, but now I'm a professor and I'm doing great, this is what I had to do, and then that helps. This year, for some strange reason, I was asked to have about 7 students in psychology and practicum students, and 1 in education. And so I'm a marriage and family therapist by license, but I said, okay, well, I can try and do that. This year, I'm having those practicum students be the panelists for our discussion panel, which is on Wednesday in the business building, room 100 at 11 o'clock. So now we will see. They've done their research, and now we will see how they present. But this is very helpful just coming here today, because now I know when we meet prior to that I need to make sure that they understand, proper public speaking.
Thank you.
So can I follow up? How do you think you might do that now?
So basically, we're going to do a dry run, and so what I'm going to do is correct them on, hey, was improper grammar, or your inflections, or your tone was off, And understanding that when you're speaking to a general population, you have to know your audience. And so, I'm probably trying to curtail some of the speaking points to fit a general audience. And we're talking about relationship building, and so what's really great is that, you know, initially going in, we were thinking about more of a relationship, like socially, but one of the topics one of the relationship building we talk about is networking. So when we get a job, how do we network with our colleagues so that we can make sure that we grow? And then with networking with non-traditional students, you know, that come here, how do we network with our peers when they're 18 and 19 years old and I'm 25 or 30 and I just cannot relate? So how can I build that relationship? Because I want to build a relationship with my peer when we're doing group projects and things like that. So that's what they're going to be presenting on.
What Mr. Bocage was saying about reading, the fact that students don't read, they're on the phone all the time. But I always tell students about collecting random knowledge that you can use in any situation. And you gain that by reading. And I tell them about a friend of mine who got a big deal job with Merrill Lynch in Atlanta, went to the job interview, and he mentioned, he made an analogy concerning the final scene in the opera Madame Butterfly. And it turns out the interviewer loved opera. And so, oh, you've seen, how many productions of Madame Butterfly have you seen? He said, none. I read a short book about famous operas.
Yeah.
And the interviewer, who wrote it? And he said, oh yes, I know that book. And the interview turned into the interviewer just going off on opera, and he got the job.
And I guess,
Because he knew a little bit.
right. And it's like, where did we lose that though? Why is it that our students aren't doing that? You know, where did we lose that? Because as a college student, we're able to speak about certain artists and psychologists and just simple conversation.
We lost
You
it.
know, where did we lose that?
We lost it when the state mandated that we cannot mandate more than 120 hours.
Yes.
We used to have some additional coursework because we used to have up to 134
Right.
hours to graduate. But they said, no, you got to take it out. So some of those extra things that we used to offer students, they said, no, strip it out, strip it out.
Yeah.
If they want to do it, they do it on their own, but they're not.
But they're not.
So we're giving them bare bones, basics.
Yeah.
So that goes to my next point. How can we implement COM 210 in all curriculums?
Communication.
Yeah, we can't.
You can't.
We could just put
We
it
don't
in the
have
content
staff.
of our work.
Well,
Yeah, maybe in this.
Content of our.
well, it doesn't have to be a formal setting as well.
Sure.
You could kind of reconstruct the course to bring in the outside entities to kind of assist with the language.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But at some way, it has to be across the scope.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they used to have writing across the curriculum.
Well, that too, that
We
goes
need
with
to
the
have-
reading, writing.
But we need to have
all
like
that.
speaking across the curriculum.
Yeah. Constructive reading.
But providing students for a place and an opportunity to speak about things that they care about, know about, they're interested in, like what Dr. Belcaire is doing.
Right.
Trying to find more opportunities to do that on campus.
Besides open mic poetry.
Right?
Nothing's wrong with that, but yeah.
It's different.
Somehow, maybe, like we're sitting here, and in most cases, in business settings, you have dinners and lunches. Why not incorporate something in food services? Where you would implement something during the hours of 11 to 1, where some of the departments would come in, sit with the students at the tables, and give a topic, and rotate. And that's just something I threw out.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
See,
It's like round table discussion.
Round table
Round table.
discussions.
when we were involved with writing across the curriculum, every department had to implement a writing portion within their curriculum, wherever it appeared. And so maybe what we need to do is look at university-wide implementing, communicating across the curriculum, and actually have it be part of some course or courses, or provide a frame of reference for them to do that where they are provided or afforded the opportunity to do those kinds of speaking experiences. Because I think there are some areas that they do not have that, and that's why I know you have it with your business, we have some of that with our education, but there may be some departments within the university that the students never do have to do any kinds of speaking
And that's a whole motto out there, communication across the curriculum, it's out there.
But I mean, that's something we might want to look at, and so we work feverishly on writing across the curriculum, getting all the pairs in, getting the deans in, and making sure that every department had a component of writing.
All right, I'll call.
So you've got a couple of new people, maybe you can get some.
Oh yeah, we have I
intros,
think we have
maybe
three new faces in here. So what we're doing now is we are just an open question. What sort of things are we seeing with our students and how they communicate orally? Their public speaking skills, their interpersonal skills. What sort of habits are you noticing, positive or negative?
On the negative.
And I'm sorry, and you could also talk about maybe things that you've seen that could possibly help.
On the negative side, what I'm seeing is that the students are not reading. They do, you assign chapters and they just don't read. They expect to get everything in the classroom from the instructor, and no matter if they're using different types of handouts or PowerPoint or using the board, whatever techniques the instructor use, they are still not reading it. I think it's very difficult for them to come to class and learn everything or learn what they are supposed to learn without reading the book. In their conversations and their presentations are not, most of the time it's not acceptable. That's what I'm seeing with the students.
Thank you.
Oh, hi. Clarissa Robinson, I'm HIMS director. And some of the things I agree with you, there does seem to be a lot of an expectation from the students to get everything that they need in the classroom from the professor, which is can be very all-encompassing, and it could really leave you with just a very draining experience after the classroom, which is sometimes unexpected, and then you don't understand why, and then you have someone like this nice lady who comes and articulates it, and you realize it at some point, well, this is the reason why. And then looking further, if you do a survey in some of your classes, you realize some students hadn't even purchased books. That's another issue in terms of, is it cost prohibitive, or is it really the trend that because most of this generation spends so much time on their phones, we're moving away from, print, and is it something that we need to accommodate more consistently if that is, part of the culprit. I find that from the beginning, with regards to communication skills, in most cases, our students that come in as freshmen straight from high school, in most cases, it's a very raw product that we are, and I hate to look at it that way, but what I mean from beginning to end, we're responsible for that product and making sure that they're job ready by the time that they're a senior. There is a lot lacking from the time that they enter the doors. And I do see a gradual, for about 50% of the students, overall improvement by the time they make it to the senior level. However, I think it would be most beneficial if some of the experiences that we talked about, particularly the roundtable discussions, if we could fill in and support each other disciplinary-wise with more of those type experiences, because that is a collegiate experience, and we don't offer that enough, just in terms of extracurriculars, if you will, because we can't provide all of that within our curriculum, and I don't think that's an even feasible plan to look at including additional liberal arts experiences. Really is what we're talking about. And it was a time where you just saw that lacking in a lot of the business majors in terms of, their skills and their deficiencies with writing. But now you see it's pervasive throughout most disciplines. And it is because I think we don't have, you know, I know we're supposed to have a theater that's coming up. Because the opera experience that you talked about might be where, you know, that student would get some of that, not necessarily at a round table discussion. So I think just in terms of the vibrancy of university life and culture, we have a lot that's lacking. And for example, some of those experiences, if we could build that back into the infrastructure, so much would not be expected and put up on the departments themselves to do what really is impossible.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything?
Janita Hegwood from the College of Education. I just see a connection with your written communication and your oral communication. I'm noticing that the students are lacking in the written communication side, and that's playing a part in their oral communication. And I feel like I spend a lot of my time going over the basics of grammar and fine-tuning that before they can even get up and present what they've written. So I'm seeing maybe we need to look at class sizes to give them that support that they need. I'm realizing when you have a class full of 30 and 35, you can't address those needs that are necessary. So I think we need to start looking at those freshman and sophomore courses so that we can kind of tackle the issues there before they move up to the point of graduation and they can't even conduct themselves in an interview or write a formal research paper because they missed the basics in those intro level writing courses.
I just want to say, whatever we look at, we need to understand that there's a very successful culture that is dominating the way people communicate. The hip hop culture is very successful. The hip hop culture is very, very successful, and the language that many of us speak, students speak, emanates from that, and it's very successful. In terms of business, I'm talking about from a business perspective, it's very profitable, it's very good, and it keeps growing. So if that is the language of the most successful people that they see in their everyday life, that's how they communicate. It's very difficult to tell them to do that. So we have to find something, an argument that is higher, to let them say, look, this may be good here, but this may, because looking at around the world we live in, my kids, everyone else, that's to them, that's the world they see. They see us as being out of touch, out of style, old-fashioned. So you don't know how you talk. So again, I just want to put it out there. That the culture that is dominating the world today, that is very, very successful, is a hip-hop culture. It is the biggest product that America ships to the world. It is the biggest product. It's more profitable than Apple, than anything else. There's more money in it than anything else.
They're being told that reading books is old-fashioned, and they don't know enough to. I'm constantly telling students, you have to bring some. We talk about critical thinking. You can't just accept something because somebody tells you. You know, some attractive person tells you this is so, and they buy it. You know, and they don't look at it critically.
Any final thoughts? We are creeping just past 12:30 here, so I mean, we have.
Okay, well, I'll talk.
Go ahead. There we go.
I think with the new coming of age and the current situation that we're in our environment, social media is big now. Back in the days, I remember my mother speaking that she had to type shorthand, and now we're all coming around that full circle where the digital age has allowed text messaging assistance and speaking in acronyms like on the way, OTW, you know, things like that. And so anyways, and then also with the culture change of being, the customer is always right. In our office, the institution affecting this office, students come in and we solicit feedback, provide, you know, opportunities for written communication, but I see that the student would come in and if, you know, we're in New Orleans, it's hot outside, you have a job to go to, you have children in daycare, the opportunity isn't always there, the time commitment. The group of students that we're attracting, you know, I believe that all that comes into the university environment, and they're here to receive their education, however, on their way out, they don't have enough time to engage. Those opportunities are not there because of, you know, caps on how many credit hours you need to earn, or even the residual from Hurricane Katrina here at SUNO, because our new facilities are here, but had we all lived out the same administration building to get that, to get back up to par, it sounds like that struggle is within them. But when I look back at the information that the students do give us, the feedback, these students are confident. They're out there, they're rating themselves very high. I feel great about myself. I can put it in writing, I can rate it, but when it comes into the elaborating what makes you feel great, what evidence-based, you know, things that have put you here, those examples, they're short. They are either not provided. And I think that gives us a disconnect, and this is what the QEP is all about, the quality enhancement plan, things that we do see. But now, since it's evidence-based, we need to prove it. So I've invited the SGA team over here, but we have two great ambassadors from the College of Business. Dr. Uday can attest that I was one of his students at the time, and so I'm speaking not only as a staff member here at SUNO, but also as an alumna of the College of Business. If it wasn't for me needing the money or the scholarship that the Program of Excellence in Science, Math, and Computer Technology, PASMAC, has given to me, I would not have had that opportunity. I came from a really humble beginning. Anything that we got our hands on was gold, you know. So now that I'm working back here in higher education, I do see the disconnect. And with this QEP, I'm hoping that we can move forward and try to bridge that gap.
Mr. Benjamin, anything to add? Okay, well, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Bourdonnais, but thank you. This was my first focus meeting, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Thank you.
Well, I thank everyone for your participation. This information will really help us in determining the next steps, and so thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. And if you think of anything, please feel free to reach out to us. And if you are doing things that you think might be a good avenue for us to explore, or you see research out there, you're doing things already that you have data on, we can, you know, really need to help with gathering all of that as well. So keep us in mind and keep in touch. Thank you very much. And if you can make sure you signed in and give us your feedback in writing too, if you can. Thank you.